The cameras had barely started rolling when Atlanta's air turned thick with tension. It was supposed to be just another day of filming, but everyone knew this scene was different. The producers had been teasing it for weeks, the long-awaited face-to-face between Rasheeda and Jasmine, the two women who'd spent years avoiding each other, connected by one man and one scandal that refused to die. As the crew whispered behind their masks and the boom mic hovered inches from trembling lips, Rasheeda stepped onto the set with a look that said she wasn't here for peace. "I'm only doing this once," she muttered to her stylist, her voice steady but low. "After today, I'm done talking about her." In the next room, Jasmine adjusted her hair, pretending to scroll through her phone. Her hands shook. She'd faced internet hate, fan conspiracies, even public humiliation, but this was different. This was Rasheeda, the woman she'd been compared to, blamed by, and branded against for years. The silence between them had become louder than any argument. The producers knew what they were about to capture could break the internet. "Keep the cameras tight," one whispered. "If this goes left, we need every second of it." When Rasheeda entered the room, time slowed. Jasmine looked up, her eyes meeting Rasheeda's for the first time in nearly 5 years. No security guards, no publicists, no distractions. Just raw history and too many unspoken words. The sound of Rasheeda's heels echoed on the marble floor, sharp and deliberate. Jasmine didn't move. "You look nervous," Rasheeda said finally, crossing her arms. "I'm not," Jasmine replied, forcing a half smile that fooled no one. The tension was electric. Even the crew seemed afraid to breathe. Rasheeda tilted her head, her voice softer now but cutting all the same. "Then why can I feel your guilt from across the room?" Gasps filled the set, Jasmine's eyes flashed, and the familiar fire returned. "Don't talk to me about guilt, Rasheeda. You act like you're the only one who got hurt." Rasheeda stepped closer. "You broke my home. You embarrassed my family. And you want me to believe you're the victim. Your home was already broken." Jasmine shot back, her voice shaking. "You just didn't want to admit it." The room erupted, crew members whispering, producers signaling to keep rolling, and off-camera phones capturing every second. Twitter was already alive with fan theories the moment a leak hinted at today's shoot. As the argument grew sharper, something in Rasheeda's tone shifted. She wasn't just angry anymore, she was exhausted. "I've carried this pain long enough," she said, her voice breaking. "And for what? For a man who played both of us like a game." For the first time, Jasmine's expression changed. Her defenses fell. The room went silent. Even the lights seemed to hum softer. It wasn't just confrontation, it was closure waiting to happen. And yet, nobody could tell how it would end. Would they finally find peace, or was this the moment everything truly fell apart? Fans watching from leaked behind the scenes clips already called it the end of an era. Social media flooded with comments. "Rasheeda's done protecting everyone but herself." Others wrote, "This ain't closure, this is war." As the cameras zoomed in, Rasheeda looked directly at Jasmine, eyes glistening. "Say what you came to say," she whispered, "because after today, there's no turning back." The air froze. Every fan, every follower, every viewer waiting to see what would come next could feel it. The storm had finally arrived. Camera lights reflected off the glass walls of the studio as Rasheeda stood frozen, facing Jasmine for the first time in years. It was supposed to be a simple reunion scene, a staged moment for the show, but the energy in the room said otherwise. Behind the cameras, the producers exchanged looks, already sensing that what was about to unfold would rewrite everything they had planned. Rasheeda's eyes didn't blink once as she studied Jasmine from head to toe, her tone calm but carrying years of bitterness when she finally spoke. "So this is what it took for you to finally show up," she said. Jasmine kept her voice low, almost too low for the mics to catch. "I showed up because I'm tired of being the villain in your story." That single sentence hit like a punch. The crew glanced at each other, but no one dared interrupt. Rasheeda crossed her arms. "You earned that role," she said slowly. "You walked into my life, smiled in my face, and then took everything I loved. What else would you call that?" Jasmine swallowed hard. "I didn't take anything that wasn't already slipping away from you. You think I wanted this? You think I wanted the hate, the names, the lies?" Her words came faster, desperate, like someone trying to breathe underwater. "I didn't destroy your marriage. He did. I just got caught in the middle." Rasheeda's jaw tightened. "Don't you dare blame him," she said sharply. "You knew what you were doing." Jasmine shot back instantly. "And what about him? He knew too, but you still sleep next to him." You still post pictures like nothing ever happened." A murmur rippled across the room. The producers leaned in closer, sensing the emotional temperature rising. Rasheeda's voice softened, but it shook. "You think forgiveness is easy? Every time I look at him, I see the mistake. But I stayed. Not for him, for my family. Something you wouldn't understand." Jasmine took a slow step forward. "Don't tell me what I don't understand, Rasheeda. I raised a child who'll never know peace because his name became a scandal. You talk about family, what about mine?" Her eyes glistened, her words breaking with emotion. "I didn't ask to be dragged through this. I didn't ask to be painted as a homewrecker. I was young, naive, and stupid. And yes, I fell for him. But I paid for that mistake every single day." The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. Rasheeda's face softened for a split second before she caught herself. "You think you're the only one who paid?" she asked. "You think watching your kids read headlines about their father's affair didn't break me?" Her voice cracked. "You think walking into a room full of women whispering behind your back doesn't hurt?" Jasmine looked down, her voice trembling. "It hurts both of us. That's what you don't see. We're both stuck in something that should have ended years ago." Behind the camera, one of the producers whispered, "Keep rolling. This is real." Fans online had already started speculating after leaked clips hinted at tension. Twitter threads were exploding. "Rasheeda and Jasmine face-off is finally happening," one post read, with thousands of retweets. The entire fanbase was glued to every update, dissecting body language and tone. Back in the studio, Rasheeda took a deep breath. "So what now?" she asked, her tone quiet but cutting. "You tell your side, I tell mine, and we keep pretending this is healing." Jasmine wiped a tear from the corner of her eye. "Maybe it's not about pretending," she said. "Maybe it's about saying what we should have said a long time ago." Rasheeda folded her arms, uncertain whether to respond or walk away. She'd come here expecting to confront a woman she blamed for years of pain, but what she saw in front of her wasn't a villain. It was a mirror. Both of them victims of the same choices, the same man, the same lies. "You hurt me," Rasheeda said suddenly, her voice breaking for the first time. "You hurt me in a way I can't explain. And every time I tried to move on, your name came back. In interviews, in blogs, in rumors, I couldn't escape it." Jasmine looked up, her expression heavy with regret. "And you think I could? I couldn't walk into a store without hearing whispers. I couldn't post a picture without hate comments. I couldn't even smile without people saying I was proud of ruining your life." The room grew quiet again. Cameras caught every tremor, every tear threatening to fall. The audience watching later would think it was scripted, but the pain was too raw to fake. "So what do you want from me, Jasmine?" Rasheeda asked finally. Jasmine hesitated. "Honesty," she said. "Not from him. From you. I want to know if you ever blamed him the way you blamed me." The question lingered like smoke. Rasheeda didn't answer immediately. Her hands fidgeted, something she rarely did. "I did," she whispered. "But it's easier to hate you. Because hating him means accepting that I stayed." Jasmine nodded slowly, her lips trembling. "Then maybe this isn't about us being enemies anymore. Maybe it's about finally stopping the war." Rasheeda looked away, blinking hard. "You think it's that easy?" she asked. Jasmine shook her head. "No, but it's a start." From behind the camera, a faint sound of someone crying broke the stillness. It was one of the production assistants. Overwhelmed by the emotion in the room, the director signaled to keep the cameras rolling. This wasn't just a show anymore. It was therapy disguised as television. Jasmine took another cautious step forward. "I know I can't erase the past," she said softly. "But I want to stop running from it." She paused, her voice trembling. "I want to stop running from you." Rasheeda exhaled slowly. "Then stop," she whispered. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The years of interviews, the rumors, the silent resentment, all of it hung in the air like static. Neither woman knew what to do next. Forgiveness felt impossible, but so did another decade of hate. The crew didn't move. Outside the studio, fans were still typing furiously, predicting whether the two would fight or cry. None of them could imagine that both might happen in the same breath. Finally, Jasmine broke the silence. "You know what hurts the most?" she said. "It's not that I lost him, it's that I lost myself trying to prove I wasn't what they called me." Her words hung heavy. Rasheeda's eyes softened. "You were never gonna win that fight," she said. "People will always choose sides. They just chose mine louder." A faint smile flickered across Jasmine's face, though her eyes stayed wet. "Then maybe it's time we stop letting them choose for us." Rasheeda nodded slowly. almost imperceptibly. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was something close to understanding. The director leaned forward. "Cut," he whispered, but no one responded, because for the first time, there was nothing to direct. This was real life breaking through the performance. Rasheeda turned to Jasmine again. "You still see him?" Jasmine shook her head. "No," she said quietly, "not like that. I see him when he picks up our son, but that's it." Rasheeda's expression changed at the mention of the child. There was a long pause. "He looks like him," Jasmine added softly. "Every time I look at him, I see the same smile, the same eyes. It's a reminder and a punishment all in one." Rasheeda swallowed hard, her heart heavy with something she couldn't name. "That boy didn't ask for this," she said. "None of them did." Jasmine nodded. "Then maybe it's on us to stop the cycle." And in that instant, something shifted. The anger didn't vanish, but it began to melt into something else, something fragile, human, real. The cameras kept rolling, capturing what fans would later call the most emotional moment in reality TV history. And as the studio lights dimmed slightly, both women stood there, two mothers, two rivals, two survivors of the same story, finally sharing the same silence. Not as enemies, but as women who had both loved, lost, and lived through the wreckage. The studio door clicked shut, and the sound was so small that it felt loud, as if the room itself recognized there was no way back. Jasmine dabbed the corner of her eye with a tissue, then folded it neatly, like she was afraid of leaving any mess behind. Rasheeda watched that small gesture and felt something tug at her, something she did not want to name. The director finally found his voice and murmured to the crew to shift angles. A slow arc that would catch both their faces in the same frame. The boom mic dipped, someone adjusted a light, and the faint burn of the bulbs warmed the air between them. "You said stop," Jasmine whispered, voice steadier now. "I'm stopping." She clasped her hands in front of her, thumbs pressing into the soft skin of her palm. "But stopping means truth. All of it, even the parts that make both of us shake." Rasheeda's chin tilted a fraction. "Truth is expensive," she said, "and we've already paid too much." "Then let me pay my part," Jasmine replied. She lifted her gaze, finally matching Rasheeda's eyes without flinching. "The first time I realized I was in too deep wasn't when the blogs found my face. It was when he told me he could handle everything. He said he was built for pressure. He said he was a man. I believed him because I wanted a story where I wasn't the villain. I wanted to feel seen." Rasheeda exhaled through her nose. "He tells everyone he can handle everything," she said softly. "He doesn't tell you what it costs the people around him." "I learned," Jasmine answered, almost a whisper. "The hard way." The room breathed with them. The crew held in a collective pause. Somewhere in the corner, a phone buzzed, quickly silenced. The director let it go because even in that small mistake, there was proof this wasn't staged. Nobody could write this kind of fatigue. Nobody could design this kind of ache. "Do you know what it feels like to wake up and no strangers have decided who you are?" Jasmine said, her words dropping slow, deliberate. "I became a headline. I became a warning. I walked into restaurants and the hostess would look at me like she already knew my order and my sins. I stopped wearing red lipstick because I didn't want to look like I was proud. I stopped laughing in public because someone would call me heartless. I became smaller and smaller until I could barely see myself." Rasheeda's mouth opened, then closed. She rubbed her forearm, an unconscious comfort. "I got smaller too," she said, surprising herself. Every party felt like a courtroom. Every caption felt like evidence. I posted a family picture and people wrote paragraphs about how blind I was. Some days I agreed with them. Some nights I couldn't even look at my reflection because I kept imagining what they were saying behind their screens. "So we both shrank," Jasmine said, a sad smile ghosting her face. "And the only person who stayed big was him." The truth of it landed in the center of the room and sat there. Neither woman moved. The cameraman took one slow step to the left to keep his focus as their faces shifted in tiny ways that said more than any shout could. "Do you think he'll ever say sorry the way we needed?" Jasmine asked. "Not the public apologies for damage control. I mean a quiet one, a real one." "I don't know," Rasheeda answered. "I stopped waiting for it. I gave myself a private apology just to survive. I said it out loud in my bathroom one night. I said, 'I'm sorry you had to be strong for everyone. I'm sorry you forgot yourself while you protected your house. I'm sorry you didn't leave when you felt your chest breaking.'" Her eyes glistened, and she blinked hard. "And then I washed my face and went to bed." Jasmine listened like the words were medicine, slow to swallow, bitter but needed. "I talked to my mirror too," she said. "I told myself I wasn't a monster. I told myself I was a girl who believed a man who sounded like safety. I told myself I was allowed to heal, even if the internet didn't vote for it." She laughed once, short and humorless. Imagine asking strangers for permission to move on. We did, Rasheeda said, and the shared admission lifted something invisible between them. We gave them our power because we were too tired to carry it. The door to the hallway cracked open, and a producer with a tablet leaned in. There's a car outside, she whispered, nervous to disturb the moment. He's early, he wants to talk. The temperature dropped a degree. Jasmine stiffened. Rasheeda's eyes hardened on instinct. The crew looked from one woman to the other, like spectators at the edge of a cliff. He doesn't come in, Rasheeda said, steady. Not for this. Not today, Jasmine added, matching the resolve. This is ours. The producer nodded and backed out, closing the door so gently it barely made a sound. On social media, the leaks had already turned to wildfire. A trending tag flashed on the control screen. Comments flooded in real time. Fans are shocked. Emotions ran high. The family was left divided. Someone had typed, if they forgive each other, I'm done. While another wrote, this is the first time I believe both of them. Both comments could be true at once. If we're really stopping, Jasmine said, gathering courage, there's something else. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded envelope. The paper was creased from being handled too often. She stared at it like it could burn her. I wrote a letter months ago. It was for you. I never mailed it. Rasheeda hesitated, then extended her hand. Give it to me. Jasmine didn't move. I can read it, she offered, voice fragile. So you know it's not a trap. Rasheeda nodded once. Jasmine unfolded the envelope with care, like opening a wound. She read, eyes on the page at first, then lifting to meet Rasheeda's gaze when the words got heavier. I'm sorry for what I became in your life, she read. I'm sorry that my face means pain to you. I'm sorry that my name sounds like a storm in your house. I'm sorry that a mistake followed us for years until we forgot how to breathe without it. I hope one day you can walk into a room and not brace yourself. I hope one day I can too. She lowered the paper. The room felt smaller now, as if the walls had come closer to listen. Why didn't you send it? Rasheeda asked, her voice softer than it had been all day. Because I didn't want it to look like a performance, Jasmine said. I didn't want it to be content. I wanted it to be human. I didn't trust the world with anything human back then. I don't trust it now, Rasheeda admitted, but I trust what I felt when you read that. Silence again. Not empty this time, but full. A new kind of quiet. What do we do with the boy? Rasheeda asked, and the question held 1,000 smaller questions. How do we make sure he doesn't become a storyline? Jasmine's shoulders dropped, relief softening her features because this, more than anything, was the heart of it. We make a rule, she said. No cameras near him, no conversations about him on air, no shade that hints at him. If someone asks, we say he is a child and he is off limits. If they push, we push back together. Together, Rasheeda repeated, tasting the word. It felt strange in her mouth, but not wrong. The director whispered to an assistant, who nodded and slipped out to talk to legal. The machine of television had its gears, and the women could hear them turning outside the door. But inside the room they held on to the only thing that mattered. Two people deciding to be more than the worst thing that ever happened to them. He's texted me for years like I'm a fire extinguisher, Jasmine said, a wry, sad tilt to her mouth. He lights up something in his life and then comes to me when the smoke gets too thick. Her mouth. He lights up something in his life and then comes to me when the smoke gets too thick. I don't want to be that anymore. You're not, Rasheeda answered. And I won't be a museum, she added, surprising herself. I won't keep curating the past to make everyone else feel comfortable. I won't stand next to him and smile to prove I'm strong. I'm strong, whether I smile or not. That sounds like freedom, Jasmine said. It sounds like work, Rasheeda replied, and for the first time Jasmine laughed, real and small and almost bright. The producer returned, cautious. Legal says we can put a formal clause about the child, she said. We can set boundaries today. I just need verbal agreement on camera to back it up. Rasheeda looked to Jasmine. Jasmine nodded. They both turned slightly toward the main lens. The red tally light felt like a witness. We agree, Rasheeda said. No storyline about the child. No hints. No edits that paint him into our conflict. He is not part of this show. We agree, Jasmine echoed. He is not content. The producer's shoulders relaxed. A quiet victory. And still, the work of healing waited, patient but insistent. The fans are going to argue anyway, Jasmine said, more to herself than anyone. They'll say I'm manipulating you. They'll say you're performing forgiveness. They'll fight in the comments like it's a sport. Fans can be loud, Rasheeda said, but they don't sleep in our heads at night. We do. Jasmine folded the letter and slid it back into the envelope, then changed her mind and handed it to Rasheeda. Keep it, she said, not for the cameras, For you? Rasheeda took it and held it, like it was delicate. As if one wrong bend might erase the apology pressed into its fibers. She tucked it into her bag, without looking away from Jasmine. Thank you. The door opened again, this time wider, and a familiar silhouette hovered at the threshold. Hesitating, the crew flinched, bracing for impact. Jasmine's eyes flicked to the figure, then back to Rasheeda. She shook her head once. Firm. This is our room, she said to the doorway. You can wait. The figure retreated. The door shut. The two women didn't move. I need to tell you something else, Jasmine said, steady, brave. There were messages the public never saw, not just from him, from people around him, people who wanted to keep the story messy because messy makes money. They told me you would never forgive, so I should lean into being the villain. They said if I cried on camera, I'd look weak. They told me to be pretty and sharp and They told me I should be the opposite, Rasheeda replied. They told me if I got angry, I'd look bitter. They told me to be calm and graceful and saintly. They told me to keep my tone low and my lashes long so people couldn't accuse me of being petty. So they styled us into enemies, Jasmine said, like wardrobe, but for the soul. Then we restyle, Rasheeda answered. We pick our own look. A knock came. Gentle. 5 more minutes, the director said. We'll reset for pickups and beer. No pickups, Rasheeda said without turning. What you got is what you got. The director paused, then chose trust over habit. Okay, he said. Footsteps faded. Jasmine's phone lit up with a notification. She flipped it face down. I keep wanting to ask what you need, she said, but it feels like the answer would take a lifetime. Start small, Rasheeda suggested. What can you give today that doesn't break you? Jasmine thought for a moment. I can give privacy, she said. I can give silence when the blogs poke me. I can give space when he tries to make me useful again. Good, Rasheeda said. And I can give honesty. Not for the world, for myself. I can say I'm still angry sometimes. I can say I'm healing and I hate that healing doesn't look pretty. I can say I'm not performing strength. I'm living it. The lights hummed softly, a mechanical lullaby. Outside, Atlanta kept moving. Traffic stitching the city together with patient lines. Inside, 2 women stitched a different seam. Rough but real. One day we might laugh about this, Jasmine said. Not today, Rasheeda answered. But there was no edge in it, only truth. Not today, Jasmine agreed. A runner slid to water bottles onto a side table and vanished. Jasmine took one and passed the other to Rasheeda without comment. They both drank, small sips, like athletes who knew the match wasn't over but also knew they'd made it past the worst corner. When we walk out of this room, Jasmine said, setting the bottle down, someone is going to ask for a selfie. Someone is going to ask for a quote. Someone is going to try to read our faces. They can read, Rasheeda said. We know the story. We do, Jasmine replied. We finally do. The door opened for the last time and the director leaned in, eyes careful. We're wrapped on this beat, he said. You can both take a break. We'll hold the hall. Rasheeda looked at Jasmine. Jasmine looked at Rasheeda. No hug. No dramatic exit. Just a quiet nod that meant more than any embrace could. They turned toward the door, side by side but not together. Separate but not divided. And when they stepped into the corridor, the air felt different. Like the building itself had exhaled. Voices rose down the hall where the machine waited, publicists and handlers and phones and plans. But for one suspended moment, before the noise swallowed them, they stood in the threshold and chose something simple and hard. No more war, Jasmine said. No more war, Rasheeda echoed. And then they walked forward, into whatever came next. As the corridor swallowed the noise of cameras and chatter, the building's heartbeat slowed. The crew began breaking down lights, their whispers mixing with the clatter of equipment. Rasheeda stopped near a window overlooking the Atlanta skyline, her reflection framed by soft amber light. Jasmine joined her, a few steps behind, still holding the same calm she had fought to earn all day. Outside, the evening sky turned the color of bruised gold, and traffic hummed like a living pulse below. Funny how the city keeps moving, Jasmine said quietly, like it doesn't care what just happened in here. The city never cared, Rasheeda replied. It just waits for a new headline. They stood there in a fragile peace, the kind that trembles if touched. From down the hall, voices carried, producers planning teasers, editors debating which clip would open the next episode. Somewhere, someone was already writing the captions that would frame their pain for the audience. Rasheeda turned to Jasmine. You know they'll cut it, she said flatly. They'll take the apology, leave the silence, and keep the tears. They'll sell it like we made up for ratings. They can cut what they want, Jasmine said. We'll still know what really happened. Rasheeda nodded slowly, though her eyes betrayed the exhaustion creeping through her. What really happened, she repeated. almost to herself. The elevator dinged at the end of the hallway, and Kirk's voice floated faintly from inside before the doors closed again. Jasmine tensed but didn't turn. Rasheeda noticed. "He's not walking in here," she said. "Not today. He doesn't need to," Jasmine said. "He already got his show. It's us cleaning up the script." They walked toward the private lounge where staff usually waited during long shoots. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and perfume. Phones buzzed, and a monitor played muted footage from earlier takes. A slow replay of Jasmine's tear-streaked face filled the screen. Rasheeda glanced at it once, then reached out and pressed the power button. "Enough," she said. The silence that followed was heavy but kind. Jasmine sank into a chair, exhaling. "You ever think about leaving the cameras?" "Every day," Rasheeda said. "But then I remember. It's not the cameras that broke me. It's what I let them show." "You mean what we let them see?" Jasmine corrected softly. Rasheeda sat across from her, elbows on knees, the weight of years pressing into her posture. "I used to think the truth would save me," she said. "Now I think it just sells better than lies." "But it still matters," Jasmine said. "We wouldn't be here if it didn't." "Maybe," Rasheeda said. "Or maybe we're just addicted to closure." A soft knock interrupted them. One of the junior producers stepped in, holding 2 contracts. "We need signatures," she said nervously. "Final release forms for today's footage." Rasheeda motioned for her to leave them on the table. "We'll sign when we're ready." As the door closed again, Jasmine studied the papers. "These forms," she murmured. "They're like confessions we never wrote." "You can't confess to a lens," Rasheeda said. "It doesn't forgive." The producer lingered in the hallway, trying to eavesdrop. But the thick door muted everything except the muffled rhythm of voices. Rasheeda leaned back. "Do you remember the first time you met him?" "Yeah," Jasmine said. "He was polite, charming, said all the right things." She gave a dry laugh. "He even told me he respected you." Rasheeda's brow lifted. "He said that to everyone." Respect was his favorite lie. They both laughed, not because it was funny, but because laughter was easier than crying again. "I used to believe I had control," Jasmine admitted. "Like if I just kept quiet long enough, people would forget." But they didn't. They only remembered louder. "The internet never forgets," Rasheeda said. "It just waits for a new victim." "And we gave them seasons," Jasmine said, half smiling. Rasheeda smirked back. "We gave them years." A moment passed before Jasmine spoke again, this time softer. "He texted me before the shoot, said he hoped we'd be civil." Rasheeda's expression didn't change. "Of course he did. He doesn't like things he can't control." "I didn't answer," Jasmine said. "For once, I didn't need to." Rasheeda nodded approvingly. "Good. Silence is the only language men like him don't understand." "Good. Silence is the only language men like him don't understand." Producer's assistant peeked in again. "We're clearing the lot in 5 minutes," she said. Cars waiting out front. Rasheeda gathered her things, but paused when she saw the envelope still sticking out of her bag. She took it out, unfolded it once, then folded it back. "You sure you don't want this back?" "No," Jasmine said. "If I take it, I'll keep rewriting it." "Maybe it belongs to you now. Maybe it belongs to both of us," Rasheeda replied. "It's a record of what we survived." Jasmine stood, smoothing her jacket. "You know, I didn't expect this to go like that." "Neither did I," Rasheeda said. "But maybe that's the point. The real stuff never happens on cue." They walked out together, passing through corridors lined with posters of old seasons' smiling faces. Fake happiness, the ghosts of a show built on chaos. Jasmine stopped to look at one. It was from the season that started it all. She touched the glossy image of her younger self and whispered. "She had no idea. None of us did," Rasheeda said. They exited through a side door, away from the paparazzi waiting near the main lot. The night air hit them cool and clean. For once, no one was chasing, no one was shouting questions, no one was filming. "You ever think peace is possible?" Jasmine asked. "Maybe not forever," Rasheeda said. "But moments like this, it's close enough." They reached the cars. 2 black SUVs idled, headlights painting long lines across the asphalt. A driver opened the door for Rasheeda, but she turned back before getting in. "You take care of yourself," she said quietly. "You too," Jasmine replied. "And thank you." Rasheeda hesitated, then extended her hand. Jasmine took it. It wasn't a handshake. It was an understanding. When they finally let go, it felt lighter than before. Rasheeda got into her car and closed the door. Jasmine stood watching as the vehicle pulled away, taillights fading into the Atlanta night. The hum of the engine faded too, leaving her in the echo of what had just ended and maybe what had just begun. Her phone buzzed again. Messages from friends, reporters, and strangers flooded the screen. She didn't open a single one. Instead, she turned the phone face down on the hood of her car and stared at the skyline. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like running. She didn't feel like defending. She just stood there, breathing, her reflection shimmering faintly in the metal. No cameras, no edits, just her. Inside her car, Rasheeda watched the city lights blur through the window. She leaned her head back, exhaling a quiet, almost relieved breath. Her hand brushed the envelope again. She smiled faintly. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something close. The next morning, the episode teasers would drop. Social media would explode, and every outlet would spin their own version of what had happened. But tonight, in the quiet gap between drama and truth, both women found something the cameras couldn't frame: peace. Fragile and unfinished, but real. By morning, Atlanta woke up to chaos. The internet had caught fire overnight. Clips from the confrontation leaked before dawn, first as a 30-second snippet on Twitter, then as a full 2-minute reel on Instagram. Every entertainment blog, gossip page, and fan account had already posted the same still image: Rasheeda's tear-streaked face, inches away from Jasmine's trembling one. The caption read, "When silence breaks, history trembles." Hashtags filled the timeline like sparks in dry grass. Hashtag Rasheeda, hashtag Jasmine, hashtag the end. Inside her kitchen, Rasheeda scrolled through the comments with her coffee growing cold beside her. Fans were arguing in real time. Some defended her strength, others praised Jasmine's honesty, and plenty accused the show of scripting everything. She closed the app after the 5th headline used the word meltdown. The word had followed her too many years to still sting, but it did. She set the phone down, rubbed her temples, and looked toward the window where the city glowed awake. Her husband walked in, still half asleep. "You see the news?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. She wanted to choose her words carefully. "I saw it," she said finally. "It's everywhere." He nodded, pouring himself coffee, pretending not to notice her tone. "They'll twist it," he said, as if that somehow made things smaller. "They always do," she replied. "But this time I don't care." The air between them was thick. Years of quiet fights, forced smiles, and public forgiveness hung there like smoke that never cleared. He tried to say something else, but she lifted her hand, cutting him off gently. "Don't," she said. "Today isn't about you." Across town, Jasmine was sitting on the edge of her bed, her phone buzzing nonstop. Her mother had already called twice. Her friends sent messages she hadn't opened, and her publicist was begging for a statement. The comments were wild, some sympathetic, some cruel, all loud. She turned off notifications and threw the phone onto the nightstand. For a while, she just sat there, staring at the wall where a child's drawing hung crookedly. A stick figure family holding hands, drawn in blue crayon. She smiled sadly. Her son ran into the room moments later, dragging a toy truck across the floor. "Mama, you on TV again?" he said proudly. Jasmine froze. "Where?" "Granny's phone," he said. "She showed me." She forced a smile and pulled him close. "Mama's okay," she said softly. "Don't worry about the TV." He nodded and went back to his truck, humming. Jasmine's chest ached as she watched him. The innocence was a shield she never wanted to break. By noon, the production office was in full crisis mode. The phones rang nonstop. Sponsors demanded clarifications, and the network's social team worked overtime, spinning the event into a powerful emotional moment. In a private meeting, the executive producer slammed a stack of printouts on the table. "This is the biggest engagement spike we've had in 3 years, she said. "We can't waste it." Another producer frowned, "But they asked for privacy. If we push this, we'll lose them." "We won't," the executive said coldly. "They need the platform. They always come back." But this time, the calculation was wrong. That afternoon, Jasmine arrived at the office unannounced, wearing sunglasses and a hoodie. Everyone went silent. She walked straight to the conference room and dropped her phone on the table. "Take my clips down," she said. "I'm done." The room froze. The executive producer leaned back, trying to sound calm. "You can't just quit mid-season." "Watch me," Jasmine said. "I'm not your storyline anymore. Think about your career." Someone said. "I am," she answered. For the first time, at nearly the same hour, Rasheeda met with her manager in a quiet cafe outside the city. "They want us to film a follow-up," her manager said. Maybe even a reunion episode." Rasheeda stirred her tea. "A reunion?" she asked. "For what? To undo what we did yesterday." "It's business," her manager said. "Closure sells." She smiled faintly, without warmth. "So does pain." She set the spoon down. "But not mine anymore." Her phone buzzed again, Jasmine's name flashed across the screen. She hesitated, then answered, "You good?" Jasmine's voice was quiet but steady. "I don't know yet," Rasheeda said, "but I'm trying." "Me too," Jasmine replied. "Listen, I just walked out of the studio. I told them, I'm done." Rasheeda blinked. For real, I'm tired of letting strangers write my ending." There was a pause. Long but not uncomfortable. Then Rasheeda said, "Maybe it's time we write our own." Later that evening, fans spotted both women at the same restaurant. No cameras. No entourage, just two people at a corner table. A photo leaked anyway. The caption read, "No crew, no script." Maybe this is the real scene. Inside, the conversation was quieter than any episode they'd filmed. Jasmine pushed her glass of water around the table. "You think they'll believe us?" "They don't have to," Rasheeda said. "We're not auditioning anymore." "Then what are we?" Jasmine asked. "Free," Rasheeda said, maybe for the first time. For a while they just sat there, listening to the hum of the city. Jasmine laughed softly. "Crazy thing is, I thought this would end with more yelling." "So did I," Rasheeda admitted, "but maybe this is louder in its own way." The waiter approached with 2 plates, glancing nervously at them as if expecting a scene. Jasmine smiled and said, "We're fine." He nodded and walked off, relieved. Rasheeda looked across the table. "You know they'll spin this, right? We'll be trending again by morning." "Let them," Jasmine said. "Let them talk. We already said what mattered." Their plates sat untouched while they talked about everything but the past. Music, family, dreams that never made it past production schedules. Both women laughed like they hadn't in years. It was simple, untelevised, and real. Outside, a fan recognized them, raised a phone, and then hesitated. Something about the way they were smiling stopped her. She lowered her phone and whispered to her friend, "Let them be." That night, the photo still made its way online, but the caption was softer than usual. "2 women, 1 story, finally at peace." It got fewer likes than the fight videos, but lingered longer in the comments. People wrote things like, "This feels different," and "Maybe growth is the real plot twist." Back home, Rasheeda stood at her dresser, staring at her reflection. She reached into her bag, pulled out the folded envelope, and set it next to her wedding ring, which she slipped off slowly. She didn't know if that meant goodbye or just rest. Either way, it felt right. Across town, Jasmine put her son to bed and sat by the window with a cup of tea. She watched the streetlights flicker and thought of to bed and sat by the window with a cup of tea. She watched the streetlights flicker and thought of everything that had happened, the fights, the forgiveness, the noise. She whispered to herself, "No more war." And somewhere, far from the cameras and headlines, both women slept soundly for the first time in years, unaware that tomorrow's headlines would call it the end of love and war. But for them, it was simply the beginning of peace. The next morning broke with rain, soft and unhurried, the kind that made the streets look washed clean. Atlanta's skyline shimmered beneath a gray mist. And for the first time in a long while, there was no screaming headline waiting to swallow either of them whole. Still, the internet was awake. A flood of overnight posts filled every feed, screenshots of the dinner photo, threads dissecting every expression, fans debating whether reconciliation was real or just another calculated stunt. Rasheeda woke to a dozen missed calls, 200 texts, and one message that stopped her mid-scroll. It was from Jasmine, just 2 words, "Thank you." She stared at it for a long time before replying. "For what?" Jasmine's answer came back almost immediately. "For not making me the enemy anymore." Rasheeda smiled faintly and typed back, "We were never enemies, just 2 people lost in the same storm." She hit send and set the phone down. In her kitchen, the rain tapped lightly against the glass while she brewed coffee. The envelope Jasmine had written still lay on the counter beside her ring. She picked it up, ran her fingers over the creases, then placed it inside a small wooden boxer version of keeping history where it belonged. Not erased, just quiet. Downtown, Jasmine was getting her son ready for school. He insisted on wearing his rain boots, even though the walk from the car to the door was barely 10 steps. "You can splash 1 puddle," she told him. "Only 1. 2, he said, grinning. "Fine." She laughed as she watched him run through the puddles. Laughter spilling into the wet morning, Jasmine realized that peace didn't always look like stillness. Sometimes it looked like small joy, returning after years of noise. Later that day, both women's phones rang again, this time from the same producer. He sounded too cheerful, his tone bright with opportunity. "Ladies," he began, "you're trending worldwide. The network wants to offer you a spin-off. Something new, about healing, growth, womanhood. We could call it After the Storm. People would love it." Rasheeda said nothing at first, letting the silence weigh down the proposal. "You want to sell our piece now?" she said finally. No. No. He laughed nervously. Not sell, celebrate. She ended the call without replying. Moments later, Jasmine texted her. Did they call you too? Yeah, Rasheeda wrote. They don't understand. This one's not for them. Good, Jasmine replied. Then maybe we really are done performing. Hours passed. Both women moved through their day quietly, grocery runs, errands, school pickups, mundane things that felt foreign after so many years of dramatized living. For the first time, there were no microphones chasing their words, no cameras waiting for tears. It was life stripped down to its simplest form. By evening, the rain cleared, leaving behind a faint golden light. Rasheeda drove to her boutique to check on new inventory. When she walked in, her assistant was already holding a tablet. You've seen this, right? She asked. Seen what? A fan video. It's going viral. They edited clips from last season with your scene from yesterday. No music, no captions, just the truth. It's beautiful. Rasheeda took the tablet and watched. It was a quiet montage. Her standing, crying, Jasmine speaking softly, the two of them in silence. The fan had written one line at the end. Sometimes forgiveness isn't loud. It's just real. She didn't cry, but her throat tightened. Who posted it? She asked. Just a random fan, her assistant said, but people are sharing it everywhere. It's the calmest thing to ever trend on this show. Meanwhile, Jasmine was home reading to her son when her phone pinged with the same video. She watched it once, then again, then turned off her screen. See, her son said, peeking up at her. People like you? She smiled. Maybe they just finally see me. That night, Jasmine and Rasheeda spoke one more time. It wasn't planned, just natural. Two women who had spent so long being defined by noise learning how to talk in quiet. Funny thing, Jasmine said, they're calling us peacemakers now. Rasheeda laughed softly. The same ones who called us drama queens last month. The very same. Let them call what they want, Rasheeda said. We know what it is. Yeah, Jasmine replied. We do. For a long while neither spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of city traffic, and their steady breathing. Two voices that no longer had to compete. You think we'll ever go back? Jasmine asked quietly. To the show? To the chaos? Not if we can help it, Rasheeda said. Maybe this time, we get to choose peace and mean it. They said goodnight and hung up, but neither of them slept right away. Jasmine lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, remembering all the versions of herself she'd been forced to play: temptress, liar, survivor, and realizing she didn't need any of them now. Rasheeda sat on her porch, watching the lights flicker across the street, feeling a strange mix of sadness and gratitude. The next morning brought headlines again, but different ones. Rasheeda and Jasmine choose peace. Two women rewrite their narrative. No villains, no victims, just truth. Fans flooded the comments with something the show had never inspired before: empathy. By noon, the producers finally relented. They announced there would be no reunion episode, no spin-off, no fabricated continuation, just an ending. The official statement read, "Sometimes stories complete themselves." That evening, both women happened to drive past the same intersection, the one near the studio where everything had started years ago. Neither planned it, neither expected it. But when the traffic light turned red, they caught sight of each other across the lanes. Jasmine smiled through her window. Rasheeda smiled back. No words, no gestures, just a silent acknowledgement that peace, once found, didn't need to be proven. The light turned green. They drove in opposite directions. The city moved on, but somewhere beneath all the noise, the fans still replayed that final moment, writing their own captions, trying to name what had happened. Some called it redemption, others called it closure, but those who understood best didn't call it anything at all. They just watched in quiet awe, knowing that for once, reality TV had shown something real. Weeks passed quietly. Atlanta settled back into its usual rhythm, the kind that made it easy to forget how fast storms could fade when the noise stopped feeding them. The cameras had packed up, the producers moved on to fresher scandals, newer faces, younger chaos, but the internet, restless as ever, still kept pieces of that moment alive. Clips, fan edits, voiceovers of Rasheeda saying "I'm done talking about her," slowed down and turned into TikTok soundtracks. Millions used it for everything from friendship fallouts to breakups. Her pain had turned into a cultural template. Rasheeda saw it once while scrolling late one night. Girls half her age, mouthing her words in soft lighting, captioned "When you finally let go." She should have been annoyed. Instead, she smiled. Somehow, her breakdown had become someone else's anthem for healing. Maybe that was enough. The boutique was thriving again, too. Business had steadied. Customers came not just for the clothes but for the energy, the calm. The new version of her that no longer flinched when people whispered. She'd replaced the front window display herself. 2 mannequins in complementary colors. One red, one white, opposites, but balanced. Every morning when she unlocked the door, she saw them first, and every time, she thought of Jasmine. Jasmine, meanwhile, was finding her own rhythm. She'd taken a break from social media, deleted every post that wasn't about her son, and moved her focus to design work she'd left behind years ago. Her apartment looked different now. Plants, light laughter that wasn't forced. Sometimes she caught herself humming again. She told her mother she'd stopped checking the blogs. They stopped talking about me, she said with a small shrug. And for once, I'm okay with that. Her mother smiled. That's how you know you're really free. One afternoon, Jasmine got an envelope in the mail with no return address. Inside was a small folded card and a photograph. The card read, "Forgiveness isn't the ending. It's the space where new things can begin." The photo was from years ago, her and Rasheeda. Back when things were still complicated. Laughing at something just out of frame, unaware of what was coming. Jasmine turned it over and saw a note written in Rasheeda's unmistakable handwriting. "Let's not waste the peace we earned." A week later, Jasmine showed up at Rasheeda's boutique unannounced. The bell above the door rang softly, and Rasheeda looked up from behind the counter, stunned for a moment before smiling. "You kept your word," she said. "I told you I would," Jasmine replied. They stood there, just looking at each other, until Rasheeda finally stepped forward and hugged her. Not a dramatic, camera-ready hug. A real one. Customers in the shop pretended not to stare, though a few whispered. Phones stayed in pockets. No one dared ruin it. "I have an idea," Jasmine said when they pulled apart. "Something small. Something just for us." Rasheeda tilted her head. "What kind of idea?" "A foundation," Jasmine said. "For women who got caught in stories that weren't theirs. Women who've been called every name but their own. We could help them find their voice again." Rasheeda blinked, surprised but moved. "You're serious?" Voice again. Rasheeda blinked, surprised but moved. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." A slow smile spread across Rasheeda's face. "We'd have to do it quiet. No press, no TV." "Exactly," Jasmine said. Off-camera healing. The name came easily. The Peace Project. Within months, they had launched it quietly, funding the first events themselves. It wasn't glamorous. No red carpets. No reality angles. Just women in rooms talking honestly, crying, laughing, sharing pieces of themselves they'd hidden. No scripts, no edits. And it worked. Fans eventually found out. Of course, word spread, posts surfaced, hashtags bloomed again. But this time it felt different. The attention wasn't invasive, it was supportive. People shared their own stories using hashtag The Peace Project. And for once, social media became less of a battlefield and more of a bridge. In one viral clip, a woman said through tears, "They taught me that surviving doesn't have to be loud." That clip got millions of views. Jasmine watched it late one night and whispered, "That's the real show." On the anniversary of their confrontation, a journalist reached out requesting an interview. "Just one," he said. "A story about forgiveness." Rasheeda and Jasmine agreed, but only if they could do it their way. No glum team. No set, no production. Just 2 chairs in a small studio and 1 camera rolling. The interviewer began softly. "A year ago, everyone saw you two as rivals. What changed?" Jasmine smiled. "We stopped performing pain." Rasheeda nodded, and started practicing peace. "What did forgiveness teach you?" Rasheeda thought for a moment. "That it doesn't mean forgetting. It means not letting the wound decide who you are anymore." "And you?" the interviewer asked Jasmine. "That sometimes closure isn't a door closing," she said. "It's a window opening." The clip aired quietly, tucked between louder news, but it grew on its own. Fans called it the most real thing the network had ever aired. Some even joked that maybe the real plot twist of reality TV was kindness. By the end of the week, the clip hit 1 million views. Both women received hundreds of messages, not gossip, but gratitude. Messages from people saying, "You helped me forgive someone too." That night, Rasheeda and Jasmine met again, not as co-stars, not as rivals, not as subjects of a scandal, but as women who had survived it all. They sat outside a small cafe, the same one where their photo had been taken months earlier, sipping tea and watching the city glow. "You ever think we'll stop being a headline?" Jasmine asked. Rasheeda chuckled softly. "One day, maybe when peace stops trending." Jasmine smiled. "Then let's keep it trending." The streetlight flickered above them, the sound of traffic humming in rhythm with their quiet laughter. For the first time, there was nothing left to prove. No scene to shoot. No narrative to control. Just 2 women, finally living in the silence they once feared. And if anyone asked them later what it all meant, the tears, the fights, the healing, they'd both give the same simple answer. It means the story finally told itself right. And now, as we close this chapter that no camera could ever truly capture, take a moment and breathe with it. You've seen every tear, every truth, every word that was never supposed to be said on screen. You've watched Rasheeda and Jasmine walk through fire and somehow come out not perfect, not polished, but real. And maybe that's what this story was always supposed to be about, not revenge, not drama, not ratings, but release. Because what started as a confrontation turned into a conversation. What began with pain ended with peace. And while the world called it the end, anyone who really watched knows it wasn't. It was a beginning. Think about it. How many times have we held on to the wrong story? How many times have we kept replaying the same scene, hoping for a better version, when the real healing was waiting off camera? That's what this moment means. That's what this episode showed the world. That sometimes, the loudest act of power isn't shouting, it's letting go. So if you've made it this far, don't just scroll away. Sit with it, because stories like this don't come often. We live in a world built on drama, where forgiveness barely trends and peace rarely sells. But tonight, you saw two women choose something different. They chose silence over spectacle. They chose healing over headlines. And that choice, that's what makes this story worth remembering. Rasheeda didn't have to walk into that room. Jasmine didn't have to stay. Either one could have turned away, shut the door, and given the audience another fight. But instead, they gave us something no reality script could ever fake: truth. And that truth doesn't belong to them alone, it belongs to anyone who's ever been misunderstood, misrepresented, or mislabeled. So to everyone watching, ask yourself, who would you face if you knew it could finally set you free? What conversation have you been avoiding because it hurts too much to start? Maybe today is your moment to choose peace. 2. This isn't just a video. This is a mirror. It's a reflection of how pain can turn into purpose if you let it. Rasheeda once said, "I'm done talking about her." But tonight, she talked, and through that, she healed. Jasmine once said, "I didn't want to be the villain," and tonight, she wasn't. They didn't rewrite history, they corrected it. And now it's your turn. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it reminded you that even the deepest wounds can soften with time, then don't let it stop here. Hit that like button, not because it's routine, but because it tells the world these stories matter. Drop a comment. What moment hit you the hardest? Was it the confrontation, the apology, or the quiet peace at the end? Tell us. Your voice keeps these conversations alive. Subscribe if you believe that entertainment can still have heart. Subscribe if you're tired of seeing pain turned into profit. Subscribe if you want to see more stories where women take back their narrative, where forgiveness isn't weakness, where healing is the headline. Because this channel isn't just about drama, it's about evolution. And for every fan who's been with us through every twist and every tear, know this: you are part of the legacy now. Because when you share, when you comment, when you keep watching, you're not just consuming content, you're keeping the conversation going. You're helping shift what stories mean, how they're told, and who gets to own them. So before you leave, take one last look at what happened here. Two women who once couldn't stand to be in the same room found a way to breathe in the same silence. Two hearts that carried resentment finally dropped the weight. And maybe, in watching them, you realized that you've been carrying something too. Maybe you're ready to set it down. That's what the end means here. Not finality, but freedom. Not goodbye, but growth. And to every person who's ever been painted wrong, spoken over, edited down, this one's for you. Because healing might not go viral, but it lasts longer than any headline. Now it's your moment. Leave your thoughts below. Was this the closure you expected, or the beginning you didn't know you needed? Whose side did you understand more, Rasheeda's pain or Jasmine's truth? Or maybe you saw yourself in both. Tell your story, because here, your voice doesn't get cut from the final edit. Don't forget to share this video, not for clicks, not for clout, but because somewhere, someone needs to see that peace is possible. Someone needs to be reminded that forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It just stops it from owning you. And when you're done watching, don't just move on to the next scandal. Move inward. Ask yourself who you need to forgive, what silence you need to break, what part of your story you're ready to reclaim. Maybe it's a friend, a family member, maybe it's yourself. This is your reminder that it's never too late to start your own peace project. That you don't need cameras, or applause, or permission to heal. That strength isn't always loud, it's often quiet, steady, and deeply human. So as the screen fades, remember their story, but also remember yours. Because the truth is, every ending is just an invitation to begin again. This is more than reality TV. This is real life. This is forgiveness in motion. This is what happens when two women stop fighting each other and start fighting for themselves. And if that's not worth a like, a share, a subscribe, then what is? Thank you for watching, for feeling, for staying until the end. Until next time, keep choosing peace, keep choosing growth, and keep remembering you don't have to wait for someone else to write your closure. You can create it, right here, right now. This has been Rasheeda and Jasmine. The end of love and war. And maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something truer. Now go ahead, like, comment, subscribe, and tell the world that peace still has a place in the spotlight. Tell the world that peace still has a place in the spotlight.